Okay, so Chapter 1, Lesson 8 is slope. Okay, it says here, Hero Comics prints on recycled paper. The table shows the total number of pounds of recycled paper that has been used each day during the month. So here's your table. Now, look at the table, look at the graph. You'll see that the day and the day of the month, the day of the month and the day of the month, down here are on the x-axis, so the day of the month is our x value, and the total recycled pounds up here on the y-axis, this is the y value. So when we graph this on the coordinate plane, on the coordinate grid, here we've got 3, 36, which is about right there. We've got 5, 60, right there. We've got 6, 72, there. 7, 84, so 7, 84, about right there. And we have 12 all the way over here, 12, 144, right there. Is that what your graph looks like? Good. Now, this is a linear graph. Anybody explain why this graph is linear? Because it is a straight line. Very good. Now we're going to use 2 points to find the constant rate of change. So let's go ahead and use the 2, 3, 36, and 5, 60. Okay, so when we look at this, 3, 36, and 5, 60, to find the constant rate of change, which is going to be the change in pounds over the change in days, we've got the change in pounds. How do I get the change in pounds? So we're going to subtract 60 minus 36, which gives us 24. And then we're going to subtract the x values, which is the 5 minus 3, which gives us 2. Is everybody clear? All right, so this constant rate of change is 20 pounds every 2 days, which if we change it to a unit rate gives us 12 pounds per day. Is everybody clear? So the slope, please make sure you write down this definition. The slope is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. So the slope is the rate of change. We've already talked about the rate of change, right? The rate of change we get by looking at how the y value changes over how the x value changes. So the slope is the rate of change. Those mean the same thing. Please make sure you also write down this formula for slope. So the slope is the change in y, which is the vertical change, the up and down, over the change in the x value, which is the horizontal change, which is the back and forth. So if I'm looking at this example here, you can see that the vertical change would go from one point to another. If we go from this point here to this point here, you can see that we're going up 2. So there's the change in the y is 2. And then we're going from this point right here, we're going to the right 1. So that's the horizontal change, which is 1. So my slope will be 2 over 1, which is equal to 2. Is everybody clear with that? Now it says here, in a linear relationship, the vertical change, or the change in the y value, per unit of horizontal change, or the change in the x value, is always the same. Please make sure you write this down. In a linear relationship, the vertical change per unit of horizontal change is always the same, and that ratio is called the slope. And that ratio is called the slope of the function. Okay? I also want you to remember that the vertical change is the change in the y value, and the horizontal change is the change in the x value. All right, so it says here that the slope tells how steep a line is. Okay, the vertical change is called the rise, and the horizontal change is called the run. Please make sure you write that down. Actually, you can write this down right here. You'll write this part down right here. The slope is the rise over the run. So in this graph, here you can see, here is the rise, here is the run. Okay? So when we count the number of units that make up the rise, that goes in the numerator. And then we can count the number that makes up the run, and that goes in the denominator. So here, we're counting 1, 2, 3 for the rise. So that's going to be 3. And then we're going to count 1, 2 for the run. So the run, the denominator, will be 2. So the slope here will be 3 over 2, or 1.5. Is everybody clear? All right, for this example 1, it says the table shows a relationship between the number of seconds y it takes to hear thunder after a lightning strike and the miles x you are from the lightning. So y is the seconds and x is the miles. It says graph the data and find the slope. Explain what the slope represents. Now, in everyday, this little sidebar here, in everyday language, slope means that there's an incline or there's a slant. Okay, like on a hill or a skateboard ramp, right? So there's an incline or a slant. In math language, slope means the ratio of the vertical change per unit of horizontal change. Okay? Now, okay, so here is our graph. We have the miles is our x values, and you can see on the graph, it's down here with the x-axis, and seconds is the y value. There it is on the y-axis. So when we graph 0, 0, 1, 5, 2, 10, and so forth. Does everybody see how we got the graph? So now we want to find the slope. Okay, so when we find the slope, we want to look for the change in the y, and we're going to put that over the change in the x. So we're just going to count from one point to the other. So here they chose 3, 15 and 5, 25. So they chose 3, 15 and 5, 25. So in order to find the change or the difference in two values, what do? You subtract. Very good. So here to find the change in the y, we're going to subtract our y values. So that's going to be 25 minus 15. That gives us 10. And then to find the change in the x values, we're going to subtract the x values. So 5 minus 3, which is 2. Okay, so that means in 10 seconds, if there's a 10-second gap, then the lightning is 2 miles away from you. Now, this is not simplified. If I simplify this to a unit rate, that's going to give me a constant rate of change, which is going to be 5 over 1. Now, did everybody hear what I just said? The unit rate gives me a constant rate of change, which gives me the slope, right? So, constant rate of change, unit rate, slope, all mean the same thing, okay? So here it says for every 5 seconds between lightning flash and the sound of thunder, there is 1 mile between you and the lightning strike, and that is what that slope means. So, for example A, it says, graph the data about the plant height for a science fair project. Then find the slope of the line. Explain what the slope represents. So here we have our our table, and we want to put this information on the graph. Now you can see that we have time in weeks, that is our x value. And we have the plant height is our y value. So when we graph 1, 1.5, 1.5. We graph 2, 3, 3, 4.5, and 4, 6. So if it was 0 weeks, how tall would that plant be? 0 centimeters, right? So we know there's going to be a 0, 0 there, right? So we've got 1, 1.5. We've got 2, 3, 3, 4.5, and 4, 6. And if the weeks keep going, then the plant's just going to keep on growing, right? Okay. So if we know it's going to keep on growing, we know we're going to put an arrow at the end of our graph, correct? Okay. So that's what our graph looks like. So now we want to find the slope, okay? So to find the slope, we're going to pick 2 points on the graph, okay? So I'm going to choose the ones that are whole numbers, if that's all right with you. So I'm going to choose 2, 3, and I'm going to choose 4, 6. So 2, 3, and 4, 6. Now, we want to find the slope. Okay, we want to find the slope. Now, to find the slope, that's the change in the y over the change in the x. So, the way you can write the change in the y over the change in the x is that little triangle. This is delta y. That's what that triangle means. That's a delta. And that delta means the change in. Okay? So this is the change in y over the change in x. Is everybody clear with that? That's a little shorthand for you. So now, to find the change in y, we're going to come over here and we're going to subtract our y values. Remember, the plant height is the y values, so that's going to be 6 minus 3. We wrote our formula, now we're going to substitute, right? So that's going to be 6 minus 3 over the change in x, or the delta x. So now we're going to subtract our x values. So that's going to be 4 minus 2. And now you just simplify. So 6 minus 3 is 3, and 4 minus 2 is 2. Very good. So the 3 represents the y value, which is the height in centimeters, and the 2 represents the weeks, right? So that means that this plant will grow 3 centimeters every 2 weeks, right? Now, what I want you to do is I want you to write this as a unit rate, right? If I write this as a unit rate, then that means we have to divide by 2 up here, and we have to divide by 2 down there. Is everybody with me? So that would be what? Very good. That's going to be 1.5 centimeters over 1 week. And that is your slope. So here, the slope is 1.5. And what it means when it says explain what the slope represents, that means that the plant will grow 1.5 centimeters every 1 week. All right, example 2 says Ronaldo opened a savings account And each week he deposits $300. We want to draw a graph of the account balance versus time. So here we're looking at balance over time, right? Then it says find the numerical value of the slope and interpret it in words. So here's our graph, and it's number of weeks and the amount that he has in his account balance. So when we graph, you can see that he deposits $300 every week, right? So in the first week, he had no money, right? After when he starts, he has no money, I mean. After the first week, he deposits $300. So that's 1, 300. Everybody see that? After the second week, he's going to deposit another 300. So that's going to be 2, 600. And the next one is going to be 3, 900, right? Is everybody with me? Because he's depositing 300 every week. So here in slope, the slope of the line is the rate at which the account balance rises. So if I look at this, you can see that if we're looking at the delta y over the delta x, if we find the delta y over the delta x, that's going to be the delta y. How much is it changing? If I look at these 2 points here, let's write the coordinates. So this is 1, 300, and this one over here is 2, 600. So if I'm looking at the delta y, or the change in the y value, that's 600 minus 300, so that's going to be 300, right? 600 minus 300 is 300. And then we want to find the delta x, or the change in the x value, so that's 2 minus 1, which is 1. So, just like it says here, that the account balance goes up $300 for every 1 week. So let's do this next example together. It says Jessica has a balance of $35 on her cell phone account. She adds $10 each week for the next 4 weeks. Graph the account balance versus time. So it's going to be the balance over the time. And we want to find the numerical value of slope and interpret it in words. Okay? So if I were to write this in a table, which one would be the x value? What's my x value? The number of weeks, right? So there's weeks right there. And then the y value is the balance, right? So I'm just going to put BAL for balance. Now, it says she has an account balance of $35 when she started, right? So at week 0, she has $35 in there on the account, right? Now, at week 1, because it says she adds $10 each week for the next 4 weeks, and 2 and 3 and 4, she's adding $10 to this, so this is going to be 45. This is going to be 55. This one will be 65, and lastly we have 75. Very good. So now we can graph. So here we've got 0, 35, which is up there. You see that didn't start at the 0, 0, right? Then we have 1, 45. You all should be graphing. 2, 55. 3, 65. And 4, 75. And of course, if she keeps on going, her account balance will keep on going up and up and up. So here is what our graph looks like. Is everybody good? All right, so now it says find the numerical value of slope. So here we want to find the delta y over the delta x. So slope is equal to the delta y over the delta x. So you can use any 2 points you want. So let's use these two. Okay? So when we subtract for the delta y, we have 65 minus 55 over the delta x, which is the change in the x values. So that's 3 minus 2. And just like what we said, just like what it said in the notes here, 65 minus 55 is what? 10, and that represents the balance, right? So that's going to be $10 over 3 minus 2 is 1 week. Very good. So what that tells it, that's going to be my slope. So what that tells me is that Jessica deposits $10 each week, and that is what your slope represents.